The rain had stopped just before they lowered Michael's casket into the ground, but the sky above Forest Lawn Cemetery still looked like it was holding its breath. Emma stood frozen at the edge of the grave, her black dress soaked at the hem, a single white rose trembling in her hand. She couldn't feel her fingers anymore. She couldn't feel anything anymore. Jacob, 6 years old, gripped her left hand so tightly his little knuckles had turned white. Sophie, only 4, was buried in the folds of Emma's coat, her face pressed against her mother's hip, her tiny shoulders shaking with quiet sobs she didn't fully understand. They had lost their father, and Emma had lost the only man who had ever truly loved her. 2 years. 2 long years of hospitals, chemo, false hope, and whispered promises in dimly lit rooms. Michael had fought pancreatic cancer like a warrior. He had held Emma's hand at 3 in the morning when the pain was unbearable and told her, "Promise me you'll be okay. Promise me you'll take care of them." And she had promised, even when she didn't know how. The crowd of mourners began to drift away. Business associates in tailored suits muttered condolences they didn't mean. Distant cousins kissed the air near her cheek and walked off to their luxury sedans. And then, like a shadow she couldn't escape, Victoria Sterling stepped forward. Michael's mother, 62 years old. But she carried herself like a queen who had never been told no. Her platinum blonde bob was sculpted perfectly, untouched by the wind. Her black Chanel dress hugged her thin frame, and the diamonds on her wrist caught what little light remained in the sky. She had not shed a single tear during the entire service. Emma had watched her, counted the seconds, waited for 1 ounce of grief from the woman who had given birth to Michael. Nothing. Victoria stopped 2 feet in front of Emma. Her perfume, heavy, expensive, suffocating, hit Emma like a slap. "Emma," Victoria said, her voice as smooth and cold as polished marble. "We need to talk." Emma blinked. Her throat was raw from crying. "Victoria, please, not now. The children—" "Yes, now." Victoria reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a crisp, folded white envelope. She extended it toward Emma the way one might extend a leash to a stray dog. "Take it." Emma stared at the envelope. Her hand wouldn't move. "Take it." Victoria's painted lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I'm being generous, dear. Most women in your position wouldn't get this much warning." Slowly, mechanically, Emma reached out. Her fingers closed around the envelope. The paper was thick, heavy, official. "What is this?" she whispered. "Read it." Emma's hand shook as she unfolded the document. Her eyes scanned the bold black letters at the top, and the world around her tilted. Notice of eviction. The words swam in front of her. Property located at 2847 Belle Vista Drive, Beverly Hills, California. Lawful owner, Victoria Eleanor Sterling. Occupants, Emma Carter Sterling and minor children. Jacob Sterling and Sophie Sterling are hereby required to vacate the premises within 7 calendar days. 7 days. 7 days to leave the home where she had raised her babies. The home where Michael had carried her over the threshold. The home where they had decorated Christmas trees, where Sophie had taken her first steps, where Michael had taken his last breath. "Victoria," Emma's voice cracked. "You can't be serious. We just buried him. Today. Today, Victoria." "I'm being more than fair," Victoria said, adjusting the diamond bracelet on her wrist as if this conversation bored her. "That house belongs to the Sterling family. You, my dear, were never a Sterling. You were a mistake my son made when he was too lonely to know better." Jacob looked up at his mother. His eyes were wide, confused. "Mommy? What's happening?" Emma couldn't answer. She couldn't breathe. "And the children?" she finally choked out. "Victoria, they're your grandchildren." "Your son's children?" "They're your problem now," Victoria interrupted coldly. "I never asked for grandchildren, especially not from someone like you." She turned on her heel, her stilettos clicking against the wet pavement. 7 days, Emma. Don't make me involve the police." She walked away without looking back. Emma stood there, the eviction notice trembling in one hand, the white rose still clutched in the other. Sophie tugged at her dress. "Mommy, why is Grandma being mean?" Emma opened her mouth to answer, but no words came. And then, in the distance, somewhere across the cemetery parking lot, a black town car door opened. A tall man in a charcoal gray suit stepped out, his eyes locked directly on Emma. He started walking toward her, quickly, purposefully. He was carrying a leather briefcase, and he knew her name. The man approached with quiet urgency, his polished shoes crunching against the wet gravel. He was in his late 40s, with kind eyes and silver streaks at his temples. He stopped a respectful distance from Emma and removed his hat. "Mrs. Sterling," he said softly, "my name is Anthony Cole. I was your husband's attorney, and his closest friend." Emma stared at him, the eviction notice still trembling in her hand. "Michael never mentioned you by name. He just said his lawyer was a good man. He spoke of you constantly." Anthony's voice cracked slightly. "He loved you more than anything in this world, Emma." His eyes dropped to the children. "And these two." He talked about Jacob's drawings, Sophie's laugh, every single day at the hospital. For the first time that day, Emma felt something other than ice in her chest. "I need to meet with you tomorrow," Anthony continued. "There are things Michael wanted me to give you. Things he prepared before he passed. Important things, Emma." Emma glanced at the eviction notice. Her voice broke. "Mr. Cole, I don't think tomorrow matters anymore. Victoria just gave me 7 days to be out of my home. I have nothing. No savings, no job. 2 babies. I don't even know where we'll sleep next week." Anthony's jaw tightened. He had clearly seen the exchange from across the cemetery. "Come to my office tomorrow morning at 10, he said firmly. "Trust me, Emma. Michael prepared for this. He knew exactly what his mother was capable of." He handed her a business card and walked away. Emma drove the children home in silence. The Belle Vista Drive estate rose before them like a beautiful prison. White columns, manicured hedges, the swing set Michael had built for Sophie last summer when he still had the strength. She tucked the children into bed early. Jacob asked if Daddy was watching from heaven. Emma said yes, but her voice cracked on the word. She did not sleep that night. She sat on the kitchen floor, hugging Michael's old gray hoodie, breathing in what little of his scent remained. At 7:14 the next morning, a loud, mechanical noise tore through the silence. Emma ran to the window. A flatbed truck had pulled into her driveway. 3 workmen in dusty coveralls were unloading sledgehammers, crowbars, and industrial trash bins. And there, standing on the front steps in a cream-colored coat and oversized sunglasses, was Victoria Sterling. Emma threw open the front door. "What are you doing?" "Renovating," Victoria said breezily, examining her manicured nails. "This house has been an embarrassment for years. I'm gutting it. Starting today. My children are sleeping inside," Emma cried. "Then I suggest you wake them." Victoria nodded at one of the workmen. "Start with the master bedroom. I want every piece of that woman's furniture out on the lawn by noon." Emma watched in horror as a man walked past her carrying Michael's bedside table, the one he had been too weak to leave behind, the one that still held his reading glasses and his journal. "Stop!" Emma screamed. "Please stop!" Victoria turned to her, removed her sunglasses, and smiled like a snake. "Oh, Emma, you really thought I'd wait 7 days?" A sledgehammer crashed through the dining room window behind her, and Emma's phone began to ring. Emma's hands shook as she answered. It was Anthony. Emma, listen to me carefully. Get the children. Pack one bag each. Leave the rest. I'm sending a car for you right now. Do you trust me? She looked at Victoria laughing on her own front lawn while a stranger threw Michael's books into a trash bin. Yes, Emma whispered. I trust you. 20 minutes later, she was sitting in Anthony's office on the 32nd floor of a glass tower in downtown Los Angeles. Jacob and Sophie sipped hot chocolate from paper cups, their cheeks finally pink again. Anthony slid a thick brown envelope across the mahogany desk. Michael gave this to me 8 months ago, he said quietly. He told me to give it to you the moment his mother showed her true face. Open it. Emma opened the envelope. Inside was $45,000 in cash and a handwritten note in Michael's familiar slanted script. My love, this is for you and the kids to survive the storm. Don't be afraid. Walk into that will reading with your head held high. I prepared everything. Trust Anthony. I love you forever. Emma broke. She cried like she hadn't cried in 2 years. Anthony placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. There's more, Emma. The official reading of the will is tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Victoria has invited everyone, her business partners, her board, her socialite friends. She wants to humiliate you publicly. He paused. Let her. I promise you, Emma, walk in with your head high. The next afternoon, Emma stepped into the gold-trimmed conference room of Sterling Holdings. 30 pairs of eyes turned to her. Victoria sat at the head of the table in white silk, smiling like she had already won. Ah, the freeloader has arrived, Victoria announced loudly. Let's get this over with so I can return to my life. Anthony opened a leather folder. His voice was calm, steady, devastating. Before the official will is read, I am required by law to disclose a legal transfer of property dated exactly 3 months before Mr. Sterling's passing. He looked up. The property located at 2847 Belle Vista Drive, Beverly Hills, full title, deed, and ownership, was legally transferred by Michael Sterling, of sound mind and body, to his wife Emma Carter Sterling and his 2 children, Jacob and Sophie Sterling. Gasps filled the room. Victoria's face drained of color. That's impossible. It is recorded with the Los Angeles County Clerk, notarized, witnessed by 3 physicians confirming his mental clarity. Anthony pulled out a folded letter. Mr. Sterling also asked me to read this aloud at the will reading. In front of everyone. The room fell silent. Anthony began to read. To my mother, Victoria. You taught me that money was love, and for years I believed you. Then I met Emma, and I learned what love actually was. You refused to help save my life because you thought my wife was beneath you. You watched me die rather than admit you were wrong. The greatest gift you ever gave me was teaching me exactly the kind of mother I never wanted my own children to know. Goodbye, Mother. Michael. Victoria stood up. Her hands were trembling. Then, from the far end of the table, one of Michael's senior business partners, a man named Harold Bennett, stood up too. Victoria, he said, removing his board pin and placing it on the table. I resign. Effective immediately, another partner stood. Then another. Victoria looked around the room. No one would meet her eyes. She walked out in silence. She did not look back. The morning sun spilled through the kitchen windows of the Belle Vista house, painting golden squares across the hardwood floor. Emma stood at the stove, flipping pancakes. Chocolate chip, Sophie's favorite. The radio was playing softly in the background. Jacob was at the kitchen table doing his math homework, his tongue poking out in concentration. Sophie was drawing a picture of her family, her brother, her mother, and a tall stick figure in the sky with a yellow halo. Daddy. The house no longer felt like a tomb. It felt like a home again. Emma had taken the $45,000 Michael left her and used it carefully. She paid off the remaining medical debts. She enrolled in a part-time graphic design course she had abandoned years ago, when Michael's family demanded she stay home and act like a proper sterling wife. 3 months in, a small marketing firm in Santa Monica hired her. The salary wasn't huge, but it was hers. Every dollar she earned felt like a quiet act of defiance against the woman who had once called her worthless. The Belle Vista mansion, fully transferred to her and the children, had been the foundation of everything she rebuilt. She didn't sell it. Michael had loved this house. The children had memories in every room. Instead, she rented out the guest wing to a kind, elderly couple from her church, and that monthly income alone covered the property taxes and utilities. She was independent, truly independent. For the first time in her life, Jacob had started speaking again. Really speaking. The shy, withdrawn little boy who had spent 2 years watching his father waste away had begun laughing at his own jokes again. Sophie had stopped having nightmares. She was learning ballet on Saturdays. Emma watched her twirl in the living room, and sometimes, just sometimes, she could feel Michael standing beside her, smiling. Across town, in a different world, Victoria Sterling sat alone. Her $30 million Beverly Hills estate had become her prison. After the will reading, 6 of her closest business partners had resigned within a week. 3 more followed within the month. Sterling Holdings, the empire she had spent 40 years building, lost contracts. Investors pulled out. The board voted her out as chairwoman in a unanimous decision. Her socialite friends, the women who had sipped champagne at her galas for 2 decades, stopped returning her calls. The whispers had spread through Beverly Hills like wildfire. She evicted her son's widow at his funeral. She let him die because she wouldn't pay for treatment. She has 2 grandchildren and refuses to see them. Victoria sat at her dining table for one. The marble shone. The crystal glasses sparkled. The food the chef prepared was untouched. She picked up her phone and scrolled through her contacts. 347 names. Not a single one she could call. She had everything money could buy, and no one to share it with. One Sunday afternoon, 6 months and 3 days after Michael's death, the doorbell at the Belle Vista house rang. Emma opened it, expecting a delivery. It was Victoria. She looked smaller somehow, thinner. Her makeup was less perfect. Her hands were trembling. "Emma," she whispered. "Please, may I see them? Just once, please." Emma stood in the doorway for a long moment. Behind her, she could hear Sophie laughing at something Jacob said. She looked at the woman who had handed her an eviction notice over her husband's open grave. And she said gently but firmly, "No, Victoria, not today. Maybe not ever. You taught me that family is something you have to earn, and you haven't earned them yet." She closed the door softly. She did not slam it. She did not cry. She simply walked back to her children, sat down on the floor beside Sophie's drawing, and kissed the top of her daughter's head. True wealth was never the mansion. It was never the money. It was never the diamonds or the boardroom or the name on the building. True wealth is the small hand that reaches for yours in the dark. It is the laughter of a child you fought to protect. It is the love that stays long after the funeral flowers wilt. Victoria had everything, and ended with nothing. Emma had nothing, and ended with everything. Because in the end, the only inheritance that matters is the love you leave behind. And cruelty, no matter how rich, always dies alone. If this story touched your heart, please do me one small favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. Every subscription helps me bring you more powerful stories like this one. Stories about karma, love, and the truth that always comes out in the end. And in the comments below, tell me, Would you have opened that door to Victoria? I read every single comment, and I'd love to hear what you would have done. See you in the next story. Stay kind, stay strong, and never let anyone tell you that you're not enough.